Matthias Corvinus was one of the most revered kings in Hungarian history. Ascending to the throne in 1458, at the age of 15, his reign was marked by a series of military, administrative, and cultural innovations that significantly expanded and strengthened the Hungarian kingdom. He was also known for his wise governance, not only a patron of the arts and sciences, but also establishing the Bibliotheca Corviniana, one of Europe's largest libraries at the time, becoming an attraction for scholars and artists from across the continent. His military skill was evident in his successful campaigns against the Ottoman Empire and his expansion into Austria and parts of the Czech lands. Thus, Corvinus's rule brought a period of relative peace and prosperity, marking his reign as a golden era in Hungarian history. Hello, welcome to the channel. If it's your first time here, it's good to meet you, and if you are coming back, it is great to see you again. As always, if you like what I do, there's a Patreon link in the description. Otherwise, help me reach my subscriber goal of 10,000. Hopefully, by the time you see this video, we're already there. You know, all the good stuff. Like, comment, subscribe. You know what to do. Now, without further ado, please get yourself relaxed, and we may begin our full biography of Matthias Corvinus. Matthias Corvinus was born on the 23rd of February, 1443, in the small city of Golesvar, now known as Cluj-Napoca, in modern-day Romania. He was the second son of the great John Hunyadi, the prominent military leader, and his wife, Elizabeth Zilagi. The Hunyadi household was a center for scholarly activities in Central Europe, attracting notable intellectuals such as Gregory of Senok and John Vites. It was under their influence that the young Matthias developed a keen interest in Renaissance humanism and became proficient in several languages, impressively including Hungarian, Latin, Italian, Polish, Czech, and German. In his youth, Matthias was engaged to Elizabeth of Celje as part of a political alliance forged between his father and Durad Brankovic, the despot of Serbia, on August the 7th, 1451. The union, which finally occurred in 1455, was brief, as Elizabeth unfortunately died within the same year. This period was marked by John Hunyadi's conflicts with Ulrich II of Celje, which ended tragically with Ulrich's assassination in 1456. Following John Hunyadi's death on the 11th of August, 1456, shortly after his victory at Belgrade against the Ottomans, Matthias's brother, Ladislaus Hunyadi, took over the family's leadership. However, things were volatile. The assassination of Ulrich in Celje had caused a substantial rift among the Hungarian nobility, leading to the eventual imprisonment and execution of Ladislaus Hunyadi on March the 16th, 1457. The charge? High treason. You never get away with that one. Now, during this chaotic time, Matthias was also imprisoned, but later taken to Vienna and then to Prague in 1457. His mother and Michael Szilágyi led a rebellion in response, seizing control of territories east of the river Tisza. The civil war that ensued continued until the sudden death of King Ladislaus the Posthumous on November the 23rd, 1457. After the king's death, Matthias remained a captive, now under the guard of George of Podebrady, the Hussite regent of Bohemia. In the January of 1458, following the childless death of King Ladislaus in 1457, the Hungarian Diet convened in Pest to elect a new monarch. The potential for a prolonged civil conflict loomed large, making the election of the new king of urgent importance. Cardinal Juan Carvajal, a papal legatee from Pope Calixtus III, and an admirer of John Hunyadi, actively supported Matthias Hunyadi, seeing him as the key to stability. At this critical juncture, the influential Baron Ladislaus Garai was the first to endorse Matthias. He reached an agreement with Matthias's mother and uncle, Michael Szilágyi, at a pivotal meeting. Garai and his allies pledged their support for Matthias's election, while Szilágyi assured them that Matthias would not seek retribution for his brother Ladislaus Hunyadi's execution. Furthermore, they agreed that Matthias would marry Anna, the daughter of Palatine Garai, and the widow of his executed brother. To ensure the election's success, Michael Szilágyi made a dramatic entrance at the Diet, arriving with a formidable force of 15,000 troops, which naturally intimidated the assembled barons into compliance. On the 24th of January, 1458, on the frozen river Danube, the nobility, influenced by the show of strength, unanimously elected the 14-year-old Matthias as king. His uncle, Michael, was simultaneously elected as regent, solidifying their control and effectively averting the threat of civil war. The coronation of Matthias, marking the first time Hungarian nobility ascended to the royal throne, occurred after his uncle, Michael Szilágyi, negotiated his reach from George of Podebrady for 60,000 gold florins, on the condition of Matthias marrying Podebrady's daughter, Katalin. Released on the 9th of February in Straznica, Matthias quickly reconciled with John Jiskra of Brandis, leader of Czech mercenaries controlling Upper Hungary, thanks to Podebrady's intervention. Thus, Matthias entered Buda on the 14th of February, and was symbolically seated on the throne at the Church of Our Lady, though he wasn't officially crowned due to the Holy Crown of Hungary being held by Frederick III, the Holy Roman Emperor. Despite his young age, i.e. he was only 14, he reportedly took charge of government affairs immediately, and quite well. Very surprising for a 14-year-old, and what were you doing when you were 14? Well, he quickly engaged in domestic diplomacy, urging peace between the citizens of Nagyszeben and Dracula, the Prince of Wallachia. Your ears pricked up, didn't they? I've got a full video on Dracula if you want to watch that, but let's stick to Corvinus. Now, John Jiskra was the first noble to come out and actually oppose Matthias, attempting to install Casimir IV of Poland to the throne in late March, although the Polish general Sem declined the proposal. Following this, Matthias's forces, under command of Sebastian Rozgonyi, clashed with Jiskra at Saraspatak. However, an Ottoman invasion in April necessitated a temporary truce with the Czechs, allowing them to maintain their strongholds in Upper Hungary, including Saros Castle. Additionally, Matthias orchestrated the crowning of Podobredi in Prague through his envoys, insisting on an oath of allegiance to the Holy See. In May 1458, Matthias convened his inaugural Diet in Pest, where nearly 50 decrees were ratified on the 8th of June, directing that a Diet be held annually on Whitsunday. This period saw Matthias frequently summoning the estates, significantly more often than his predecessors from 1458 to 76. He maintained control over these diets, tight control, appointing and dismissing barons as needed, including the dismissal of Palatine Ladislaus Garay. He also appointed Michael Orzag as Palatine, promoting not only old aristocracy, but also capable individuals from lesser nobility, such as the Zapolya brothers, to somewhat significant positions. At the beginning of his reign, the quite early days, Matthias's annual revenue was approximately 250,000 golden florins. That's good. And despite a decree forbidding extraordinary taxes at the Diet of 1458, guess what? A special tax was still imposed later that year. Well, this all was going on as the Ottoman threat loomed, and in response, Matthias orchestrated his own military response, mobilizing the nobility and launching minor raids into Ottoman territory, securing the allegiance of King Stefan Thomas of Bosnia, and granting military command to his son, Stefan Tomasevic, over unoccupied Serbian territories. Tensions heightened at the Diet of Szeged by late 1458, as Matthias prepared for an impending war with the Ottomans. However, rumors of a conspiracy forced his return to Buda. These suspicions were confirmed when several barons, including Ladislaus Garay and Nicholas Ulaki, convened in Nemotavar, offering the Hungarian throne to Emperor Frederick III in the February of 1459. This betrayal, coupled with promises to Podobredi from Frederick, sparked a brief conflict, culminating in a tactical retreat by royal forces at Kormend in late March. Despite these challenges, Matthias managed to quell internal dissent and continued his efforts against the Ottomans, whose capture of Smederevo in June marked the complete conquest of Serbia. Matthias removed Archbishop Zexi as chief chancellor, appointing in his stead Stefan Vardai, Archbishop of Kalocsa, and John Vites. Vardai took the lead in the royal chancery, though both shared the titles of chief and secret chancellor. Concurrently, Matthias consolidated the superior courts of justice, merging the court of royal special presence and the court of personal presence into a single supreme court. This move reduced the influence of the baronial courts and pushed forward the professionalization of judicial administration. With Albert Hangaxi, Bishop of Xanad, becoming the inaugural Chief Justice. In the summer of 1464, Sultan Mehmed II besieged Jas in Bosnia. The same Mehmed II who had done over Constantinople. Yes, that one. Matthias quickly mobilized his forces along the Sava River, compelling the Sultan to abandon the siege by August 24th. Matthias's troops then crossed the river, capturing Srebrenica and laying siege to Zvornik. However, the arrival of a substantial Ottoman force necessitated his retreat back into Hungary. The following year, Matthias coerced Stefan Vuksik to permit Hungarian garrisons in his forts along the Neretva River, after Vuksik had ceded Makasha Grajina to Venice. Following the death of Denis Zexi in 1465, John Vites ascended as the new Archbishop of Esztergom. Matthias also restructured the leadership in Transylvania, replacing voivodes Nicholas Olaki and John Pongrak of Dengeleg with Counts Sigismund and John Sen-Georgi. While Olaki retained his role as Ban of Maxo, Peter Sokoli was appointed to co-administer the province. Ban, by the way, is the Hungarian title for a ruler, kind of like in Romanian how we have voivode. In 1466, Matthias convened a diet to organize an anti-Ottoman campaign and secured financial support from Pope Paul II. Yet, recognizing the limited likelihood of substantial aid from other Christian states, Matthias quietly abandoned his aggressive anti-Ottoman stance. This period of détente suggests a possible peace agreement with Mehmed II, evidenced by the peaceable arrival of the Sultan's envoy in Hungary in 1465. That same year, Matthias reorganized the leadership in Slavonia, replacing the Ban's Nicholas Ulaki and Emmerich Zapolia with John Vitovec and John Tuz. In early 1467, he launched a military campaign in Upper Hungary to quell a group of Czech mercenaries led by Jan Svela, who had occupied Kostolany. Matthias decisively defeated them there, resulting in the execution of Svela and all 150 of his fighters that were left. Well, it wasn't all about fighting. Had to do some work, you know. In March of 1467, Matthias put his hand to restructuring the tax system at a diet by renaming two traditional taxes, i.e. the chamber's profit became the tax of the royal treasury, and the 30th was rebranded as the crown's customs. New tax just dropped. Get excited. This redefinition voided all previous tax exemptions, thereby increasing the state's revenues. Matthias centralized the administration of these revenues, appointing John Ernest, a converted Jewish merchant, to oversee the crown's customs. Within 2 years, Ernest managed all forms of taxation and the operation of the important salt mines. I'm sure the people were very salty after hearing about the new taxes. Well, this tax reform, of course, sparked a rebellion in Transylvania, where representatives from the three nations of the province, i.e. the noblemen, the Saxons, and the Secules, united against Matthias. They convened on Manastur district of Cluj-Napoca, Romania in modern-day terminology, on the 18th of August, declaring their readiness to defend Hungary's freedom. Well, Matthias was not going to have that. He responded by swiftly mobilizing his forces and marching straight into the heart of Transylvania. The rebels, upon seeing this, quite quickly capitulated without a fight. However, the revolt's leaders faced harsh reprisals, many of whom were beheaded, subjected to severe torture under Matthias's directive, or everybody's favorite, impalement. Quite popular in the Balkans and the Ottoman Empire, it was the style of the time. Matthias also suspected that Stephen the Great of Moldavia had supported the Transylvanian uprising. In retaliation, he launched an invasion into Moldavia, but his forces were decisively defeated by Stephen at the Battle of Bayer on the 15th of December 1467. Matthias actually sustained serious injuries during the conflict, and this necessitated his return to Hungary to rest and recover. In early 1468, Victor of Podebrady, Matthias's former brother-in-law, invaded Austria. Emperor Frederick sought Matthias's assistance, hinting at Matthias's potential election as King of the Romans, a precursor to becoming emperor. Matthias responded by declaring war on Victor's father, King George of Bohemia, on the 31st of March of the same year, 1468, asserting his support for the Czech Catholic lords against their excommunicated heretic monarch, as he was called. Well, Matthias quickly drove the Czech forces out of Austria, and then advanced into Moravia and Silesia. During these campaigns, he actively participated in the battles, suffering injuries at the siege of Trebek in May 1468, and being captured while incognito at Cherudrim in February of 1469, though he managed to convince his captors that he was merely a local groom, nobody important, and, well, he was so convincing that they let him go. Could you imagine if they found out afterwards who he actually was? I hope somebody got fired for that blunder. The Diet of 1468 sanctioned Matthias to impose an extraordinary tax to fund these new conflicts, on the condition that it would be the last demand of that nature. In this period, Matthias also enhanced his revenue through other royal prerogatives, like mandating a palatine's heir in a county, which was later cancelled in exchange for a fee from the locals. In the February of 1469, the Czech Catholics, led by Zdeněk of Sternberg, allied with Matthias, and their combined forces faced encirclement by George of Podebrady's army at Wilamov. Fearing capture, Matthias negotiated with his former father-in-law, leading to an armistice signed in a nearby hovel where Matthias persuaded George to mediate between the moderate Hussites and the Holy See. Their subsequent meetings, including one in Alamok in April, saw papal demands that George rejected. In May, the Czech Catholic Estates proclaimed Matthias King of Bohemia and Olomouc, though he was never formally crowned. And while in Moravia, Silesia, and Lusatia accepted his rule, Bohemia proper remained loyal to George, and staunchly so. Matthias's relationship with Emperor Frederick III soured over several accusations of allowing Ottoman passage through Slavonia, impacting the emperor's lands. Negotiations in Croatia involved the Frangipan family due to their lands being vulnerable to Ottoman attacks. In 1469, Matthias dispatched troops to Croatia to block Venetian advances on Senge. Following George of Potobrady's expulsion from Silesia by Matthias's forces, Matthias faced defeat at Uherski Brod in November, leading to a tactical retreat to Hungary. The next year, without convening a diet, Matthias levied another extraordinary tax, something he said he was not going to do. Well, this, of course, sparked discontent among the Hungarian estates. His visit to Emperor Frederick in Vienna in February of 1470 aimed at financial support for his wars, but it ended fruitlessly after a month of unproductive negotiations, and Matthias departed without a formal farewell. Addressing growing unrest among the Hungarian estates, Matthias convened a diet in November, which agreed to another tax, and an extraordinary one at that, with, however, strict limits on the total tax burden. The estates expressed their opposition to the ongoing Bohemian conflict. Upon George of Potobrady's death in the March of 1471, Vladislaus Jagiello was elected king by the Bohemian estates, a decision contested by the papal legate, but ignored by the imperial diet, which refused Matthias's claim. In Moravia, Matthias learned of a conspiracy led by Hungarian prelates and barons to install Casimir, son of King Casimir IV of Poland, on the Hungarian throne. Despite initial support, resistance crumbled, and Matthias returned to Hungary completely unopposed. He assured the estates at a subsequent diet of his commitment to regular consultations, and of course limited taxation, and he managed to speak so well that he regained their support, at least the majority of them. Casimir's brief invasion ended with his retreat, the death of one of the conspirators, and restrictions imposed on another key conspirator. All of this came together to finally consolidate Matthias's authority. Meanwhile, the Ottomans captured key Hungarian forts along the Nertva River. Matthias appointed Nicholas Ujlaki as king of Bosnia, charging him with the region's defense. His international maneuvers included a proposed alliance against the Ottomans and support for Austrian rebels against Emperor Frederick. In 1472, peace talks with neighboring rulers dragged on without resolution. Matthias's attempt to unify Silesian governments met resistance from the local estates, undermining his efforts to appoint a captain general. In January 1474, Ali Bey Mihaloglu, the Bey of Smederevo, ravaged eastern Hungary, devastating Varad and capturing more than 16,000 prisoners. The following month saw Matthias and Casimir IV finally sign a peace treaty, and a 3-year truce with Vladislaus Jagiellon was also established. Despite this, Vladislaus quickly formed an alliance with Emperor Frederick and Casimir IV, who then invaded Silesia and besieged Matthias in Breslau, present-day Wrocław, Poland, in October. Matthias disrupted the siege's forces' supply lines, forcing them to finally withdraw. Subsequently, the Silesian estates appointed Matthias's nominee, Stefan Zapolia, as captain general. The Moravian estates appointed Sibor Tovakonski, a supporter of Vladislaus Jagiellon, in a similar role, which Matthias gave his seal of approval. Later in 1474, the Ottomans invaded Wallachia and Moldavia. Matthias dispatched Blaise Magyar to support Stephen the Great, and their combined forces decisively defeated the Ottomans at the Battle of Vaslui on January 10, 1475. The Moldavian prince pledged allegiance to Matthias in August, due to fears of another Ottoman invasion, although Sultan Mehmed did offer peace. Matthias declined, and instead seized the strategic fort of Sabak on the Svasa River in February of 1476, narrowly escaping capture during this operation. Early in 1476, Archbishop Johann Beckensloher absconded from Hungary with the Esztergom seized treasury to Vienna, offering his funds to the emperor. Matthias then accused the emperor of instigating the archbishop's defection for his own personal gain. That same summer, Mehmed II's forces invaded Moldavia, winning the Battle of Valea Alba on July 26th, but shortages forced them into a retreat. Matthias then partnered up with Vlad Dracula and Stefan Bathory with auxiliary troops, who defeated an Ottoman army at the Siret River in August. Vlad Dracula was thusly reinstated as the Prince of Wallachia, but died in combat against Basarab Laiota. Yes, that is the Vlad Dracula you're thinking of, the Impaler. Matthias then married Beatrice of Naples in Buda on December 22nd, 1476, after she arrived in Hungary earlier that year. Post-marriage, Matthias enhanced the royal court's splendor and formality, significantly changing his lifestyle and courtly practices, as noted by the chronicler of the time, Bonfini. In 1477, Matthias aligned with the Teutonic Knights and Bishopric of Ermland against Poland, but shifted focus to wage war against Emperor Frederick, incensed by Frederick's support for Vladislaus Jagiellon as the King of Bohemia. Matthias then besieged Vienna after invading Lower Austria. The conflict ended with a peace treaty mediated by various European powers in December, where Frederick recognized Matthias's rule over Bohemia and thus agreed to an indemnity. Matthias and Vladislaus Jagiellon's envoys finalized a treaty in 1478. This treaty permitted both to equally claim the Bohemian crown. Thus, they got to work and divided the Bohemian territories, with Vladislaus governing Bohemia proper, and Matthias ruling Moravia, Silesia, and Lusatia. It wasn't a bad deal. The agreement was solemnly ratified in Olomouc on July 21st of that same year, 1478, and finally, it marked a formal end to their disputes. Emperor Frederick only partially fulfilled his financial obligations to Matthias under their earlier treaty in 1477. On March 26, 1479, Matthias forged a pact with the Swiss Confederacy, effectively blocking the emperor from hiring Swiss mercenaries. He also allied with Archbishop Bernard II of Rohr of Salzburg, gaining control of fortresses in Carinthia, Carniola, and Styria. In late 1479, an Ottoman force, allied with Basarab Tepelus of Wallachia, invaded Transylvania and attacked Sazavaros, now Orastie in Romania. On October the 13th, Paul Kinizki and Stefan Bathory decisively defeated these forces at the Battle of Bredfield. Matthias consolidated the defense of the southern frontier by centralizing command of the Danube forts west of Belgrade under Kinizki. In early 1480, Matthias supported Stephen the Great's invasion of pro-Ottoman Wallachia, and in November he led a campaign to Sarajevo, Bosnia. He also established 5 defensive provinces around strategic forts. The following year, Matthias finally initiated criminal proceedings against the Frankopans, Zrinskis, and other Croatian and Slavonian magnates for an alleged conspiracy in 1471. Most were quickly pardoned, but interestingly, not before they agreed to a new land tax. Really makes you think. Well, in 1481, Matthias seized Mortern in Styria and Sankt Polten in Lower Austria from Frederick Markicher to secure a loan of 100,000 florins. And to the fanfare of Europeans everywhere, Sultan Mehmed II passed away on May the 3rd, 1481. Of course, always with the leadership vacuum, it led to a civil war between his sons, Bayezid II and Sem. Sem actually fled to Rhodes, but as soon as he got there, he was detained by the Knights Hospitaller. Uninvited guest, I suppose. Matthias also sought the custody of Sem, aiming to leverage him against Bayezid, though Venice and Pope Innocent later opposed the move. Later in that same year, Hungarian troops aided Ferdinand I of Naples in recapturing Otranto from the Ottomans. In 1482, Matthias formally declared war on Emperor Frederick, directing the siege of Hainburg personally from June, and leading to its capture finally in October, after which he seized several more towns over the following 3 months. And despite attempts at peace mediation, Matthias signed a 5-year truce with Sultan Bayezid instead. Well, he then worked to strengthen his illegitimate son, John Corvinus's position, granting him extensive domains. He forced Victor of Podbrady to cede the Duchy of Trapau to John in 1485, despite opposition from Queen Beatrice, who was quite vocally against the idea. In January 1485, Matthias led what was now called his Black Army in a successive 5-month siege of Vienna, moving the royal court there afterward. In the same year, Matthias enacted the Decretum Maius, reforming the administration of justice and confirming the Palatine's regency in his absence. Relations with Emperor Frederick? Well, they deteriorated further, leading to Matthias's proclamation as King of the Romans by 6 prince-electors in 1486. Despite forming an alliance with Vladislaus Jagiellon in September, Bohemian estates refused to confirm it, recognizing Maximilian's election instead. Matthias continued his military campaigns, capturing several towns in Lower Austria and imposing Hungarian governance, while retaining some of Frederick's officials. The lengthy war finally concluded with an armistice on December 1487, initiated by Duke Albert III of Saxony. Matthias then entered peace talks, offering to return Austrian territories if Frederick and Maximilian renounced the 1463 territory and recognized him as the heir to the Holy Roman Empire. It's a bold strategy. Well, unfortunately, Matthias died in Vienna in 1490 before these negotiations were finalized, although, personally, I don't think they would have signed off on that. It's just a bit of a bridge too far. Well, King Matthias was lauded in the work Chronica Hungarorum, as I guess the Chronicles of Hungary, in 1488, which aimed to elevate the legacy of Attila the Hun, drawing parallels between him and Matthias, who of course was likened to the second Attila, and portrayed as a heroic figure akin to the aforementioned Scourge of God. In the latter years of his reign, of course, Matthias was quite feared by his subjects for his relentless approach towards those he suspected of disloyalty, as observed by Philip de Comines. In 1484 he imprisoned Archbishop Peter Varady, and by 1485 he had his Chancellor of Bohemia, Yaroslav Boskovic, executed. Matthias's stern measures extended to the aristocracy, evident from the 1487 imprisonment of Nicholas Banfi, a noble linked by marriage to John the Mad, Duke of Glogau. Thus Matthias's actions seemed aimed at seizing the Glogau duchy for his son, John Corvinus, leading to hostilities with John the Mad, allied with Duke Henry of Podbrady, and declared war on Matthias in May that year. Well, by November, Matthias's forces had taken over the duchy completely, so I'm sure he regretted that declaration. Well, how did he die? Most of the time, people would suggest gout. Either way, we know that by March 1489, his health had declined significantly, and he was apparently immobile and had to be carried around everywhere he went. Tensions over his successions grew, particularly between Queen Beatrice and John Corvinus. Matthias sought the intervention of Beatrice's brother, Alfonso, the Duke of Calabria, to dissuade her from pursuing the crown, expressing concerns over the Hungarian populace's strong resistance to female rule. To secure his son's future, Matthias proposed ceding Austria back to Emperor Frederick in an exchange for recognizing John Corvinus as the King of Croatia and Bosnia. Well, his final appearance was at a Palm Sunday ceremony in Vienna, 1490, despite reportedly feeling severely ill that day. His health worsened after consuming a rotten fig, leading to his death on April 6, 1490, amidst suspicions of a stroke or possible poisoning, according to differing medical opinions. Well, Matthias was finally interred in Székes Fehérvár Cathedral after a funeral at St. Stephen's Cathedral, Vienna, on April the 24th or 25th, the year 1490. So rest in peace, Mr. Matthias. Well, thank you very much for coming here today and getting this far. Aren't you impressive to make it to the end of the video? Oh, not many people make it here, but you know, as they say, the top of the mountain is very lonely. I'd like to thank my top-tier patrons, Stark Factory, JC, Jeffrey, and Susan, for being complete chads and supporting the channel on Patreon. And if you'd like to do so, well, you know what to do. It's in the description. But I would like to thank you once more for joining me. It's always a pleasure, and we're going to keep doing it until I get gout and cannot do any more, just like Matthias. Hopefully that does not happen any time soon. Good night, everyone. See you tomorrow, same time, same place.